Hi there. I'm going to read to you from my new book, Crow's Song. It's a historical World War II fiction story about two children, a girl in England and a boy in the Netherlands, in Holland. And I'm going to read you about the boy, chapter 20, called Darkening Skies. The skies are swarming with bombers, both allies and enemies, like flocks of malicious birds, squadron upon squadron, determined to drop their shells on us while fighting one another. I know the difference between friend and foe by the sounds of their engines, which ones are the dreaded Nazi Luftwaffe, and which are our British friends. There is a low menacing thrum as the aircraft flying in formation dump their deadly payloads, destroying factories, houses and other buildings across the city, moving closer towards our home. The night bombing is the most sickening. Sirens wail, waking us moments before we hear the distant sound of enemy aircraft, droves of them in formation against the night sky. I hold on to my youngest brother, Janche. All of us huddle together in a cellar under the house as the distant rumble shatters the silent night. Fear eats away at my nerves like a rat nibbling at rubbish in the alleyway. My mother's calm voice masks her traumatized face as she nervously encourages us to sit quietly and wait. "It's all right," she repeats over and over. "It will pass." With my father out of the country or ferrying Jewish families across the Polish border to safer ground, there is no man but me, at 14, to hold the family together. In the thick darkness, I hear the high-pitched whine of bombs falling to earth and brace myself. My chest and shoulders clench, waiting for the miserable seconds before they explode. Goosebumps rise across my limbs as I wait for the next massive wave of destruction. In the thin light of one flickering candle, I glance around at my siblings' faces, wide-eyed with terror. Will it be me? Will it be us next, obliterated from the world? I inhale deeply and unleash a broad smile, trying to look genuinely relaxed and calm. "Shall we sing?" I try to break the impasse between fear and death. "Let's sing as loud as we can. Those Nazi idiots won't get the better of us." "God, please, please protect us," my Catholic mother repeats, gazing upwards in prayer at the claustrophobic ceiling and walls of our underground refuge. We sit shoulder to shoulder, and I realize I am not the only one quaking in my cold shoes on the dirt floor. Seconds stretch out like hours, stalling time in the misery of this harsh confrontation. Relentless noise pursues us over endless nights. I hug my youngest brother and sister on either side of me. "It'll be over soon, I promise," not believing a syllable of my own words. Without warning, a massive explosion rocks our home on its foundation. I shout out as debris and dust covers us all, but the target is next door. When we finally emerge, shaken but alive, the neighbour's home is destroyed beyond recognition, and the entire family of 6 have been instantly eradicated, like rats crushed under a malevolent giant's boot. Numb with disbelief, I cast adrift with no stable shore in sight. I must face up to reality. Surely God must be dead. How could any spiritual good come from this constant misery? I've been hearing stories from some of my friends. Even though we no longer attend school, we meet up in the rubble and remains of nearby homes and talk about what our parents discuss. The stories seem unbelievable. Surely some are overstated. How can any human dream up such atrocities? Late one afternoon, I find some cutlery inside a crushed dining room sideboard of a destroyed home. Henk helps me wrench the cupboard open with a section of metal pipe, and we split the knives and forks between us. Henk lets me keep the teaspoons too. "You found them. I only helped you get them out, and besides, you have little Inge, and she can only eat with a spoon." I grin my thanks. Henk is a good friend. We part. Henk going to the right and further down Fredericklaan, and me turning back to my family's blast-damaged home. Nazi soldiers in tight lines, like a finely honed blade, have been raiding homes, throwing entire families into the streets before moving into their houses, using them as a base from which each unit operates. They execute fathers and sons in the streets as their screaming wives and sobbing children watch in helpless horror. Is this our new normal? Is this how our lives will be now? I shake my head, trying to erase the images, the torment in the teller's voice, strangled words burning into every observer's heart. But what do they not say? Not witness? What stories are left untold? It's difficult for me to grasp that those soldiers can rip a baby from a mother's arms for the crime of being Jewish. In the beginning, it was a trickle of distressing tales. But as the months march on, the confiscation of homes, property, food and shelter trigger a tidal wave of devastating panic. On the rare occasions I see my father, he nods, his grey, exhausted face affirming these are not stories, not phony news. These are real-life events taking place right now, right here. They're all true, Pa says wearily. I've seen it for myself. He hesitates and I remain quiet, wanting him to tell me more. I've seen one of the concentration camps in Poland. I talked to 3 Jewish refugees. They were starving, just skin and bone, with harrowing stories of survival. The shock of listening to them galvanized me into action, and that's why I continue working for the underground. I can tell he wants to say more, but doesn't want to remember the horror either. You want to say something else, I suggest? He glances down at his hands, sucking in a breath before looking into my eyes. My first mission involved taking a mother and her 2 young children across the German border, through the Netherlands into Sweden. In the beginning of the war, the Nazis called them work camps while they were under construction in Poland. And these work camps might ring a few bells with the work camps that the Russians are setting up with Ukraine. That's not in the book. But now they are concentration camps like Auschwitz, where people get executed, whole families gassed to death. There are lots of awful things going on: starvation, beatings, despair, and horrible cruelty and violence. He pauses. I don't want to talk about these things. How did you get the mother and children out? We have staging posts across the countryside, a windowless lined attic room at one place, a barn with an underground cellar at another. People make sure food, water, clothing and other supplies are stocked in these safe places. We operate in small groups and hunker down between long walks, and there is always fear. Every so often there are checkpoints, which frequently change, and not everyone with false identification papers makes it through. I frown at the confusing information, but how many are the Nazis taking? Are they arresting Dutch people and locking them in these camps too? Pa leans forward, the weight of his left hand pressing onto my shoulder. Listen, my son. Yes, they are Dutch people, but most are also Jewish, and tens of thousands are being rounded up and sent to Auschwitz concentration camp to their certain death. Why? How can we let this happen? He lets go of my shoulder and leans back in the chair. How do ordinary humans let many things happen? Look around you, he continues. Have you not seen the Germans eating in the best restaurants and cafes? All kinds of expensive food. The best cuts of meat and fish, the very best of everything, while the children of Holland grovel in rubbish bins and starve or freeze to death. I drop my head and we both sink in horrified silence. How many can you get out? As many as I can, he slowly says, his mind flickering over images of the past year or two. I have seen things that no man should ever witness, and I have made decisions no person should make to save the lives of adults and children caught up in this madness. And sometimes death is the best choice. The following afternoon, my mother sends me to collect our meat ration. It's a very meagre amount for a family of 6. Sometimes only bones, with the meat stripped from them, but Ma makes soup as best she can. I visit Henk and we talk for some time. I walk with him as far as the church graveyard before saying I need to get to the butcher and back home before curfew. I head across the road and down a block or 2 towards the town centre, where the butcher's shop remains open. I don't know the time, but I'm sure it's closer to 6 than 7. As I swing around the next corner, heading east, a German Waffen-SS officer stops me. Where is your Bewijs van Adermelding? He asks in Dutch. My identity card is only a few months old. I rummage in the back pocket of my trousers and pull it out. The soldier scrutinizes both sides before handing it back. Do you know it's curfew soon? Go home. He waves his grey-green uniformed arm in the direction I have come from. Understood, he shouts abruptly. Yes, sir. He walks towards the town centre, and so do I, pretending to walk past the square and into an alleyway beside the shops. Ma will be infuriated if I don't turn up with the meat bones. I glance around at the back of the soldier retreating down the road and out of sight. Making my way quickly towards the other side of the town square, I step into the butcher's shop and hand over my ration card. I am the only customer at the counter, which I find disturbing. You're a bit on the late side, the butcher says, narrowing his eyes at me. You better hurry. The Nazis look for any excuse to shoot. He wraps 2 small bones in brown paper with twine, securing the knot, and passes it to me before stamping my tattered ration card. Bedankt, I say, and race out of the shop and walk briskly towards home. As soon as I cross the town square, the same officer springs from the shadows. You again? I flinch but stand frozen. Did you not hear me? Breaking curfew is punishable by death. I follow orders. These are my orders. Do you want to die? He draws out the last word as if it's a razor cutting the early evening silence. It is forbidden. No, sir. Then go. Don't stop until you get home, he shouts as I spin around and race back home. Crow Song. It's getting 4.7 stars on Amazon. Thank you.